Hello, my name's Deborah Abela, and I'm very lucky to be here today to chat to you about my writing and my books. I'm a kids author, and I want to thank the Sydney Mechanics School of Arts and the Thomas Keneally Centre for inviting me to chat today. I've been writing for about 15, 16 years, I think, and in that time I've written about 25 novels for kids, mostly novels for kids and one picture book. And I knew from a really young age I wanted to write. But as I got older and I went to university, I went to teachers college, I didn't quite know exactly what I wanted to write and how I wanted to kind of, work out that sort of career path. I stumbled into a job working in television, and I was working for adults TV first. And then I kind of again accidentally fell into kids TV. And that's when I knew that's the kind of writing I wanted to do. I wanted to write definitely, but I wanted to write for kids. So my very first book was the Max Remy series, and I wrote that actually while I was still working in the kids telly industry. And it just combined all of my loves that I wanted to put in my very first book: a feisty female character, my love of cartoons, fast pace, lots of humour, lots of adventure, and spies, which my love of Get Smart kind of came out there. And that would be probably one of my main kind of tips. If you want to be a writer and you want to be, especially if you want to make a career out of being a writer, write about what you love and what you get really, really excited about. So since then I've moved on to write it looks on the surface probably a disparate group of books. I've written about spies and soccer and ghosts and flooded cities and World War II and spelling bees and pesky wolves. But even though to some people that might look different, every single one of my books is about a character, and a young character, because I write for kids, trying to make their mark, trying to overcome these kind of enormous obstacles. Grimston is probably one of my most known novels, and so I want to talk about that one just for a sec, because Grimston came about because I got really angry. I got so angry about governments around the world not taking the issue of climate change very seriously. And I got furious about the way scientists were treated and science was treated. So I got so cranky that I thought, I'm going to write a book about something that goes wrong because we didn't take enough care of the planet. And kids care about this. And so I added sea monsters and flying machines and girls who were good with swords and lots of bounty hunters and evil harbour lords. And this to me is my kind of Dr. Seuss, the Lorax kind of cranky novel. This is my, we need to take care of the planet better. And then I followed that up by a book called New City. And I mostly did that too because kids wrote to me and harangued me and said, what happens next? What happens to the kids? Where do they go? So this is also a lovely thing about writing for kids too, that interaction. Kids will write to you and say, I love this, I didn't like that so much, or where's the next book? And that happened with my latest series of books is about a young girl who's terribly, horribly shy, really, really anxious, and her name's India Wimple. And she's in this book here called The Stupendously Spectacular Spelling Bee. And over the years working with kids, I'd started to see these kids who were kind of quite anxious and nervous and shy, and I didn't think they had any reason to be anxious about their abilities. And so I wanted to write about a young kid and her beautiful family who just supports her as she embarks on entering a spelling bee, which just terrifies her. And then after I wrote this book, kids harangued me and emailed me again and said, what's going to happen next? And so that's where the sequel came from, the Most Marvelous Spelling Bee Mystery. Another book I want to talk to you about just briefly before I say goodbye is Teresa. And Teresa is an historical fiction, and it's based on something that happened to my dad when he was born. My dad was born in a cave during one of the heaviest bombing raids of World War II in Malta, which was the most heavily bombed place of World War II. And I loved this story as a kid. I've always known this story. And as I did more research as an adult, I thought, actually, that's going to be a great story for kids. It's about survival. It's about kids facing, this incredibly frightening time of World War II where their country's being bombed. And I definitely wanted to tell it from a kid's point of view. And that's the other thing about writing for kids. You need the kid to be the center of that story. You need the whole story to be child-centric and try and get in the minds of the kids. And people say to me sometimes, how do you do that? It's been a long time since you were a tiny kid. And I think somewhere inside you have to still know that kid. You have to still not just remember, lovely memories from being a kid. I think somewhere inside you have to be that 8-year-old or that 10-year-old. And that then helps you to, evoke those kind of ideas of how you felt when you were scared. What did you do when you were first bullied? How did you get out of those terribly sad situations that happen in families? So they would be my big kind of tips if you want to make a career out of being a writer. Write because you have a story you're desperate to tell. You are so excited about that story. Write because those characters won't leave you alone. Write sometimes because your audience won't leave you alone. But only do that if you really have another story to tell. And the other thing is enjoy it. Really enjoy your writing. There will be hard days. It actually is. It's a really tough business to be in because they're long, hard days, and you just got to sit down and just write. Even when you've got that voice in your head saying, no one will read this. Why are you doing this? You're not good enough to do this. You have to ignore that. Join writers groups and share your ideas, share your frustrations with your writer friends, and just go for it. Just do it and have fun. So thank you again for letting me chat today about my books. I could talk forever about books because it is really something I'm so passionate about. So thank you very much, and good luck to all of you out there who want to be writers.